How's it going, everyone? It's Sam. How many Americans actually have one full Bitcoin? I want to talk about this because I saw this video on YouTube come up. How many Americans have $1 million or more? And I thought, well, Bitcoin's moving up. It's around all-time highs. A lot of people are wondering, like, okay, how many people have actually been able to acquire one Bitcoin? How many people in the US have been able to acquire one Bitcoin? Because it might be hard to find at first for people. And to be clear, we're going to have to take some assumptions into play here. But as you can see, Bitcoin's done really well. A lot of people are wanting to allocate towards Bitcoin because it's up significantly throughout the year. It's done really well over the last couple months. Luckily, if you've been through the bear market, hopefully you were able to buy around 17,000, 18,000, 20,000. I mean, there, a year where you could buy under 25,000. Now, on this channel, we did buy that entire time. We also bought leading up into this bull market. We've been trading a lot recently. If you want to trade, if you know what you're doing, there's a link underneath the video to Margex where you can start longing and shorting the market. I have videos on how to do that. If you're already a trader, check this platform out because they allow different forms of collateral. For example, I can trade Bitcoin, but I can trade it with Bitcoin as collateral, or Solana, or Caspa, or USDC. It's super easy to switch those. So I have several trades that are up hundreds of percents, and they're based in other currencies like Solana, a Bitcoin trade that has Solana as collateral. So pretty cool there. But I wanted to bring it back here. How much retirement savings Americans have? Now, there are a lot of people that have less than $10,000. That makes sense. A lot of younger people, a lot of people that haven't saved for retirement at all, or that maybe they're older and they had pensions and they have Social Security, that kind of thing. 58.4% of Americans have less than $10,000. Now, to be clear, I think people need much more than that. Like, I would not bank on Social Security taking over for you and giving you everything you need. I'm not even banking on Social Security at all for my generation. But let's continue on. 10,000 to 100,000, about 20% of Americans. So right there, nearly 4 out of every 5 Americans has less than $100,000 in their retirement savings. Okay, let's continue. 100,000, I believe this is supposed to be 100,000. This is from the Motley Fool, by the way. 100,000 to $500,000, 13.9%. So by now we're looking at about 9 out of every 10 have less than $1 million, less than $500,000. Let's continue on. 500,000 to $1 million, about 4%. So now we're looking at maybe 1 out of every 15 people have $1 million or more. Let's show the last couple. He actually cuts away, then cuts back. 1 to 5 million, about 3.1%. And then there's about 0.1% that have 5 million or more. Okay, so there's very few people that have this amount of wealth. Keep in mind, it's important to mention that these amounts are in tax advantage accounts like 401ks or IRAs. They could have other money in other brokerage accounts or rental properties. These aren't included in these figures. So in specific retirement accounts, maybe there are 3%, 4% of people that have $1 million or more. So not very many. Now, he goes into another graph, and we'll go into Bitcoin here in a second, but number of millionaire households in the United States. Okay, in 2020, it went to about 11.6 million households. Okay, that is actually higher than I would think, but of course, when you take into account people's homes, it would make sense that there would be actually a good number of millionaires in high cost of living areas. They just bought houses 10 years ago, and now they're millionaires. Now, a lot of people have wealth tied up in their homes. A lot of people have wealth tied up in their businesses. A lot of people don't actually have liquid net worth or liquid assets, or they just don't have a lot. Now, that's interesting when you come to Bitcoin because Bitcoin is a $73,000 cost for one Bitcoin. A lot of people don't even realize you can buy fractions of a Bitcoin. It's really easy. But a lot of people don't have the ability to save a lot of money in something that they deem risky. Now, a lot of Bitcoiners would say Bitcoin's not risky because there's a finite supply. It's also got no central bank that can make weird laws up, print money. Like I said, there's a finite supply. There aren't people that are able to pull strings. It doesn't discriminate. You can actually hold it yourself and have no third party. There are a lot of reasons why people like Bitcoin, but this is, in a lot of people's mind, considered risky because it's quite volatile. It's an emerging asset class, so it goes up very fast and it goes down really fast. And for a lot of people, it's hard to get their head around that and make sense of it, because when it's going up, they feel like they're missing out, and then it starts dumping and they sell. They sell because they don't understand it fully instead of dollar cost averaging. I bought back here all the way up, all the way down, all the way up again. And I understand what Bitcoin is. I understand that it moves quite volatile. So I'm able to hold on. Now, for the people that have been able to dollar cost average, that have been able to buy, it's still hard to buy a full Bitcoin. And I'll show you some stats here in a second. But the fact is, you have to be buying for a while. Let's say you make $100,000 a year. You invest in retirement. You have living expenses. Let's say you pay $20,000 worth of taxes each year. Maybe you spend $70,000, so you have $10,000 left over after putting money towards a 401k and maybe a high yield savings account for future expenses, emergency funds, health insurance, all that kind of stuff. Maybe you have $10,000 left over. Okay, well, maybe you'd be able to get a full Bitcoin if you're able to buy like all this time. Maybe you could get to a full Bitcoin, because there was a good amount of time where Bitcoin was down at 20,000. So maybe you'd be able to, but that's if you're just buying Bitcoin without looking at it, just like continuously swallowing up Bitcoin. But for a lot of people, they're not making six-figure incomes. Or for a lot of people, they start buying, maybe they buy a couple $100 down here and then it starts moving up and then they hold off. A lot of people too, they're millionaires. Again, they're not liquid. They don't have money to put in something like this, or at least they don't think they do, because again, they're paying their mortgages, they're paying for their kids to go have soccer, go play soccer or whatever. They're going on vacations. There's a lot that's like forced savings, like a 401k, Social Security, a house. But even a millionaire, a net worth millionaire, probably couldn't go and buy a Bitcoin today, because there's not really a place where they can buy it where they have $70,000 freed up. Maybe they could do it in a 401k if they have access to be able to control their own 401k, which most people don't. But they don't have $70,000 to plow into Bitcoin. So you have to do it over time. Now, there are stats on how many addresses have one Bitcoin or more. So these are the stats. There are a lot of wallet addresses that have basically no Bitcoin in them. Actually, 11% of all addresses have less than 0.00001 Bitcoin, which is like, I don't know, $1, something like that. A lot of wallet addresses just kind of have dust in them. That's what we call it. A lot of wallet addresses, 20% of all wallet addresses, have 0.00001 to 0.0001 Bitcoin in them. So again, maybe $60 or less. So that's 30% wallets right there. Now you're getting into a little bit higher wallet sizes here, up to 0.001. So this would actually be $60 or less. The last one would be $6 or less. This is $60, $70 or less. Another 24%. So over half the wallets have less than $70 in them, $75 in them. 0.001 to 0.01. Again, this is people that maybe are starting to buy Bitcoin, or maybe it's a large wallet that send out most of the Bitcoin, but there's still maybe $500, $300 left of Bitcoin. This is another 20% of wallets. So we're at 75% of wallets have less than $600 in them of all the Bitcoin wallets that have been created. Okay, a lot of these might be leftover addresses to someone used a cold storage wallet and then sent out the Bitcoin, and then there's just basically nothing left. And then 0.01 to 0.1. So these are probably people that are stacking, right? These are people that are starting to stack Bitcoin, starting to accumulate 15%. So now we're at about 90% of Bitcoin wallets have less than 0.1 Bitcoin, which is, at the time of this recording, about $7,400. From 0.1 to 1 Bitcoin, only about 6.55% of wallets have that amount. So these are people, again, probably actively stacking, trying to get more Bitcoin. Maybe this person already had, or these people already have a full Bitcoin, but they're splitting it between multiple addresses. So that's another 6.5%. So less than 2% of wallets have 1 Bitcoin or more. Now, this is about 1.01 million wallet addresses, or 1,010,000 addresses, somewhere around there. A lot of these people, though, have multiple addresses with this amount of Bitcoin. So if you have 5 Bitcoin, you probably have it split up over maybe 2 to 5 wallets, maybe 10 wallets. I know some people have a ton of wallets. They don't want to put more than like a quarter of a Bitcoin on each one, and they have multiple Bitcoin. So we have 1 million different wallet addresses that have 1 Bitcoin or more. I'd say most of the people that have over 1 Bitcoin have at least 2 wallets. So I'd say there's probably 400 to 500,000 people that have 1 Bitcoin. And there's some people that have 1,000 Bitcoin that have 10 different wallets. So I think really there's probably 300, 400, 500,000 people that have Bitcoin. Keep in mind though, Bitcoin is a global asset. This is not something that, just people in America have. There are people in Lebanon that have it, Argentina that have it, Nigeria, Russia, China. It's all over the world. According to recent data, Americans own or have approximately 30 to 32% of the world's wealth, making the United States the leading holder of global wealth. So maybe 1/3 of those Bitcoin wallets are US investors. So we're looking at 100 to maybe 200,000 investors in the US have 1 Bitcoin. Keep in mind too, there are some wallets that have, let's say 10,000 Bitcoin, but they're held by a company and that company has shareholders. So you could have essentially 1 Bitcoin. Let's say you own MicroStrategy. You own 1/250,000th of MicroStrategy, the entire market cap. You could own 1 Bitcoin through that proxy. So that would only show up as 1 wallet address of maybe 10,000 or 250,000, right? But they have 100,000 people that own part of the company that owns the Bitcoin. But just when we look at wallets, there are probably only 100 to 200,000 people in the US that have 1 full Bitcoin. And I think that might even be a little bit extreme. I think a lot of people don't have close to that amount, which means 1 out of every 3,000 people or 1 out of every 2,000 people in the US have a full Bitcoin. Let me know your thoughts on this underneath the video. Do you think I'm right on or do you think I'm far off? Thank you so much for watching. Again, if you want to trade crypto, there's a link to Margex underneath the video. The market looks extremely bullish, and if you want to leverage trade, you can do it with that link. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Hit subscribe for future videos like this, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.